Okay, so now that we've got our characters imported into Unreal Ed, let's go ahead and see how we can add them into the level and then set it up so that we can control their animation by, I don't know, hitting a trigger for starters. Now, of course, the idea in the very end is not to have a movie that a player has to run up and hit a trigger. Of course, unless you're wanting to do some sort of animated cutscene. Then, of course, yes, that would be a good approach. But what we want to do is have a completed movie that's going to play all by itself when we launch Unreal Tournament 2003. But in this case, let's just go ahead and set it up so that we've got our characters inside the map and a trigger that we can hit and actually see the animation play out that we just saw over in 3ds Max in the last lesson, or lesson before.
That's right, we're going to set up a simple scripted sequence. We'll be using that later with Matinee.
Yeah, you kind of look at this as like a control system in a way.
Right.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. We'll go ahead and we'll start out with her. So Fight or Fall was the last one that was selected in the animations browser. Just keep that in mind. What I'm going to do is go ahead and come in here and open up the actor classes browser, and we need to go grab an X-Pawn. So what I'm going to do, up under actor, I'm just going to come on down to Pawn. I'll go ahead and open Pawn. Then I'm going to come down to Unreal Pawn, open up Unreal Pawn, and we've got two different actors in here. The X-Intro actor, or excuse me, the X-Intro Pawn and the X-Pawn. Now, Logan, you want to talk about these real quick?
Actually, either of those can be used in this type of sequence. What that is the actual actor that looks like a player. And in the case of when you're playing the game, you have X-Pawns that are either being controlled by player controllers or bots. In our case, we're going to be overriding that with a scripted controller. Now, what the difference is between the intro pawn and the X-Pawn is the intro pawn is sort of, it doesn't have everything necessary to actually play.
It's a little cleaner, if you will.
Right, but it's also not set up with a default mesh, so it's slightly harder to work with. We're actually going to be using an X-Pawn just because it's easier to select. Either one will work, and for the absolute cleanest code-wise, you can use the X-Intro pawn.
Exactly. But again, we're going to use the X-Pawn. Let me go ahead and select it and show you why. Basically, I can come over here, just pick any place, and then right-click on the floor, and then come up to Add X-Pawn here, and bink, hey, I actually see something. If I go into the X-Intro pawn, its mesh property is not assigned, and so it makes it just a little tad bit more involved, that's all. This right here is just for visual feedback in reference to this video tutorial. It's going to be a lot easier to follow what's going on. Now, Logan, why didn't we use perhaps one up in the hierarchy? Why didn't we use an Unreal pawn, or even a pawn for that matter?
Those aren't actually placeable. That's just underlying code that's reused in intro pawn and X pawn.
Okay, good. So now that we've got an X pawn in the level, we've got Mr. Jug in here. Now let's go ahead and swap this out for, let's go ahead and close down our browsers for a moment. And actually, let's not. Let's come over here to animations. Let's go ahead and convert this to the one that was last active inside our animation browser, which is our falls. All I need to do is simply just double-click on Jug down here, or my X-Pawn, and then come up under Display, and if I expand Display, and then come on down to Mesh, you'll see there's static mesh, or excuse me, I mean skeletal mesh, Jug Melee. I can simply click on this, and then hit Use, okay, move this out of the way, and take a look at what we've got. Hey, pretty cool, eh? Now, she's got some problems, though. First one, most obvious, is going to be a texturing issue. So we need to make sure the textures here are fixed. What's happening is her textures are actually being overridden by the Jug skin at the moment. And we can see this by coming down just a little bit to skins. If I expand skins, you're going to see there's the Jug Male A, Body A, and Head A. All I need to do is simply empty this out. And of course, by emptying it, you don't see anything happen over here in the viewport. All I need to do is just slightly move the viewport to make the update, and boom, there you go. Now she's got her proper textures. So the next thing I want to do is something that we really don't see until we jump into game, but just to prevent us from having to go into game and showing it to you, then coming back. Since we use the X pawn as opposed to the X-Intro pawn, we've got actual inventory assigned to her. So in other words, she's going to have a weapon stuck to her hand, or you could say stuck through her hand is the way we'd actually see it come in this particular case. Well, we want to go ahead and get rid of that. So I can just simply scroll down here on the X-Pawn's properties and just open up Unreal Pawn, come down a little bit lower, expand required equipment, come down, and then let's just go ahead and remove the assault rifle and the shield gun. Okay, so that fixes that problem. Alright, so with this, now we could go ahead and we'll just close properties at the moment, and we can simply duplicate her over and bring in kicks. So with her selected, all I'm going to do is just a Control W. Aha, now we have two, and I'll just move her over like such, and then come back over here, and we will simply change from Fight or Fall to Fighter Kicks. So now you can see now we've got this girl in there. Now what I want to do is go ahead and bring properties back up again, and let's go ahead and make sure that she is selected, not the light. There we go. And then we'll come down to display, again, down to mesh, click use. Look at that. Very nice. And now I can just simply control drag and kind of bring her up relatively close. We can fine-tune the distance between one another and the actual kicking, all that good stuff when we start using Matinee. We'll show you some tricks how we can use preview to help align things. But say to about right there looks pretty good. Of course, we still have the skinning problem, so we can simply come back down to skins, and I'll just simply click over here and tell it to empty that out. Just a small bump, and then it's updated. And you can see, as a matter of fact, we've got our greenish-brown texture, and we've got our gray-colored texture. And if we wanted to go down a step further, just to confirm, we duplicated it over, so I know everything's going to be good. But up under Unreal Pawn, come down a little bit lower, required equipment, everything's going to be emptied out in there. Okay? So at this point, we've brought our two characters into the map. First thing you may want to do is go ahead. I'm just going to close some of this out at the moment. I'm going to come over here to my side view, and let's zoom on in, and take both of these. So Control Select and then Control Left Click Drag, and I'm just going to line it up to where they are standing on the floor. Probably a good idea. So something about that, and perhaps maybe move this back just a little bit. Okay, so now we need to go ahead and set up the controller, if you will, the control system for playing the animation of the characters.
That's right. We need to go and have something that will allow us to specify what animation to be played and when to play it.
You got it. And we're going to do this with an Unreal scripted sequence actor. So let's go ahead and set that up. First thing I'm going to do, let's go back into our browsers again. Actor classes browser, and we'll go ahead and close this up. And we just go ahead and come up here to key point. We come up under key point to AI script. Up under AI script, we'll open up scripted sequence, and we will grab an Unreal scripted sequence actor. Now I'm just going to simply come over here and right click, and then come up to add Unreal scripted sequence here, and there you go. So we'll start out with one, and then we'll do just like we did a second ago with the X-Pawn. We'll just be duplicating this over in a minute. So let's go ahead and close this out and come into the properties for the AI script. The first and most important thing is, obviously, she needs to be associated with this AI script actor over here one way or the other. So first thing I want to do is go ahead and give this a name. So I'll come up under Events, come down to Tag, and let's call this Fighter Fall Controller. Okay, hit Enter, and Control-C to copy. Now I will go ahead and come over to her properties with her selected. Now what I want to do is come up here to the AI category and expand it, and you'll find a property called AI Script Tag. Right now it's set to none, meaning that it's going to be player controlled, right? Or go ahead.
It's whatever would be the default controller for an X-Pawn.
It's a player or if it's a bot, basically. In this case, though, I'm going to go ahead and paste this in, and watch what happens when I hit Enter. Boom. From her pivot point all the way back over here to the AI script tag, or excuse me, script controller, we can now see a line being drawn. Of course, don't worry, the moment you select something else, you don't see that line. Even if I come over here and select the Unreal scripted sequence actor, you don't see the line, only when you select her. That's letting us know who the controller is, right?
That's right.
Now what we want to do is go ahead and come back over here, and I'm going to come up to the AI script category. Let's go ahead and expand that. Very important here. I'm going to set the controller class to scripted controller. Why am I doing that, Logan?
That's so that you don't have a bot or player controller type.
So we'd have a bot. If we didn't set that, we'd have a bot that would actually spawn into this map when we execute it.
Yeah, actually, that's right.
And that's a bad thing.
Right. So when we're using a scripted controller, so that we can use all custom commands, if you will, to be run on this character. So we can specify animations or whatever and run only our own list of stuff. No.
And he's calling them custom commands, and I'm going to switch that up just a little bit and say that's very good. Or we could call them custom actions, or actions that we're going to specify.
That's right.
So watch this. We have an actions category. Let's go ahead and expand actions. And by default, every time you put one of these Unreal scripted sequences into the scene, we've got two actions already on it. I'm just going to empty out my array. And now let's go ahead and start adding some stuff. Now watch this. The most obvious thing to add, if I just come over here and tell it to add, by the way, for those of you guys that are completely new to working with this may be a little bit confusing at first. Spend a few minutes with it, and it will actually become quite comfortable. We now have index 0, the first element in the array. And all we need to do is come down here to where it says New, click over here, drop the window down, and then we get to choose what kind of action do we want. Man, there's a lot of different action types that we can choose. In this particular case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come up here to a play anim. Okay. Now, I need to hit new before this is actually committed to the array. Right now, the array is still element 0 has none in it. So I'll go ahead and click new. Now element 0 has actually got the play anim in it, and I can come down here to base anim, and I can specify what animation is going to be played. So in this case right here, we're going to play fall. Okay, and you can see we have a blend in, a blend out, the animation rate, animation iterations, looping, yes or no, and what start frame we want to actually start at when this hits. Now, idea is that at this point, when the map actually begins, there's nothing holding us up. Let's go ahead and close this up. In our actions list, we only have one thing, and that's play animation. So the very moment this map starts, the animation is going to start playing for fall. Right, Logan?
That's right.
And you're going to be waiting to spawn into the level, so it's going to be counting down. By the time it gets in, she's already going to be on the ground, right?
Probably.
So what we need to do is I want to set this up so that we basically have some sort of wait for a broadcast event before we start playing the animation. So to do that, I'm just going to come over here and insert another action before that original play animation. So now you can see element 0 is currently set to none, and element 1 is the play animation. So if I come up here to 0, let's go ahead and change its play anim over to a wait for event. So I'll tell it wait for event. I'll come over here and click new to commit it. So now you can see 0 is indeed something going on there as opposed to the word none. It's a wait for event. And the event, the external event that we're waiting for is going to be, let's just stick with start movie. That's what we've been using all this time, and that really makes sense in this case right here. So in other words, when we broadcast out start movie, that's going to start this sequence, or basically, actually, it's not that it starts it. What happens is, let's close these up to make it easier to see. We're sitting here on element 0 waiting for that to be broadcast before we're allowed to advance to the next action. Okay?
That makes it easier for testing because now we can use a trigger to trigger off that start movie, so we don't see the animation take place until we want it to.
You got it. Only thing is, though, at this point, I better make sure I come in here and add a trigger in so that I can actually have my character run up, hit something, or my player run up, hit something, the trigger that is, and then see the animation begin. So we'll just go ahead and come back into our actor classes browser real quick, and let's go ahead and close up Keypoint and expand triggers. Come down here and grab a trigger, and we'll just right-click, add trigger here, and basically the same thing that we did earlier. Let's come into the properties on the trigger, and the event that's going to be broadcast will be start movie. Okay, simple enough. And we'll go up here to advance, and we'll come down to be hidden and go ahead and set that to false just to make things a little bit easier to see. And let's go ahead and perhaps position that over just a little bit so that when we smack into it, we're kind of centered between the two. Okay, so far so good. And at this point, we're just controlling the one. So let's go ahead and come back over here to the Unreal Scripted Sequence Actor real fast. Let's go ahead and close the advanced category. Come back into the AI script, back in the actions. Right now, we're waiting for the broadcast. Once we hit the trigger, we advance forward to play animation. Now, I want to add one more to where basically it's going to go back up and sit on wait for an event. In other words, it's going to wait for the player to trigger this again, and then it'll fall right through and continue playing the animation, or starting the animation all over, if you will. So I'm going to add another element into the array, come down here, and change this one to an action, go to action. So I'll go ahead and come on up here, locate action, go to action, tell it new, and it's going to ask, what action number do you want to go to? Well, I want to go to 0, which is wait for an event. So now, when we start out with the map, when it starts playing, we're going to be waiting for the broadcast, start movie. As soon as we detect that, we automatically fall through to play animation. But here's the cool thing about play animation. The moment the animation's triggered to start playing, we immediately fall through and start doing the next one.
Right, meaning that it's non-latent.
Exactly.
As soon as you trigger an animation, the sequence or the actions list keeps going on to the next action.
So this is a good thing to point out. Be very careful. If you put, let's say, 2 or 3 play anims in here, you're only going to see the very last one because it's going to start to play the first one, it's going to start to play the second one, then let's say it's going to start to play the third one, and the third one is what will play out.
That's right.
So with that, if you want to hold an animation up, there is a wait for anim end. So you can wait for the animation to come to an end before you advance to the next action. So basically what we've set up right here is a nice little loop. Okay? Now let's go ahead and let's close that out for the moment. And I'm just going to grab this guy right here and do a Control W, and then simply Control move over here next to the other actor. Okay, like such. And then back into Properties, and I'm going to come up under Events and change the name first. From Fighter Fall Controller, I'm going to change it to Fighter Kick Controller, like that. Not Kicky, but Kick. Hit Enter. Control Copy just to make life easy. Go ahead and select her. Again, coming up to AI, expanding it down to AI script tag, and we'll go ahead and paste that right there. Hit Enter, and again, you'll see the blue line being drawn from the character's pivot point back over here to the AI script actor. Okay? So now we've got that in place. The only thing we really want to do is, at this point, come back up into the AI, Unreal Scripted Sequence Actor, back up here to the AI script, open up Actions, and let's just change the animation that's going to be played. As opposed to playing Fall, we need to play Kicks, like such. Okay? And we'll leave everything else at default, and at this point, Logan, you feeling pretty good?
Right, everything should be set up to where we can trigger these animations now.
So let's go ahead and jump in the game and see how it works. Dun, 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 dun. Here we go. That's my cheap music, by the way. All right, look at that. They are not moving, not animated, because they're waiting for the broadcast of Start Movie. So let's go ahead and jump on in.
Play.
All right, and we'll simply come over here. Let's get ourselves close and lined up. And trigger, look at that. Smack, and boom. And they basically what's going to happen is they're just going to stop playing where the animation ends. But remember, right now, those two Unreal Scripted Sequence actors are sitting there. They've been told to go back up to element 0, which is wait for an event to be broadcast, meaning that if I run over this, boom, look at that, they continue again. Now, since both of these two characters were exported from 3ds Max, their reference pose was at 0, and the animation that we're playing right here is also at 0, then everything's going to look fine when we first trigger this the very first time. There's going to be no snap, okay? But let's say that, as I mentioned earlier in the previous lesson, I told you I'd come back around to this. Let's say that we had multiple sequences, and when I trigger this, let's say at that point I wanted to start out with a sequence that is not going to start out at the same pose, our reference poses, and what we would see is our character would then snap over to that particular pose and then start. And that may look bad. That's why you may want to go ahead and export out one frame of animation so that you can do a play anim right away at the very beginning and then wait for the event to actually kick off the whole animation. But that one frame that you export it would be from the sequence that you're actually going to play, so the character would already be in that starting position. Character or whatever it is that you exported out from 3ds Max, piece of equipment, who knows. So let's go ahead and look at one more thing just to confirm what Logan was talking about with animation being non-latent. I should be able to continue re-triggering this animation with the trigger right there without waiting for the animation to come all the way to an end. And watch this. Forward, chink, and forward, chink, and you can't kick me. You can't kick me. You get the point? Okay. Now you can also see that while our animation is close, it's not dead on. We can line this up a little bit better when we get over into Matinee in the very next lesson. So with that also, since you can kind of see the snap right here, but since we have some blending times where we're blending into this animation, that's why we'll actually see the character. You'll see right here kind of go shunk. It'll happen quickly, but you'll see it. And just so you see, here it goes, shunk, and ready to go. Okay, so we're now actually controlling our characters doing the animation that was created over in another package. So let's go ahead and exit out of there and come back into Unreal Ed. And Logan, in regards to this lesson here, is that pretty much everything we want to talk about?
Should be.
I think so. So with that, that's going to wrap up this lesson. Come back in the next lesson. We're going to show you how we can start setting up Matinee so that we can then turn this into a movie. Thanks.